Sabhaye Namaha, Sabhasadbhyo Namaha. It's indeed an honor to be back here at this event, at this institution, as I still relish the experiences of my last year here. I'm already back here, so it's a wonderful opportunity to share a few thoughts that bothers me, and especially in the context of sustainable development goals and Indian knowledge systems. With the permission of the dignitaries on the stage, and my pranams to Professor D.P. Singh ji, Professor Vikram Singh ji, Professor Banerjee ji, Professor P.N. Jha ji, and all the dignitaries on the stage here. Last year, we were looking into a particular concept of health and well-being. And starting from that, I think ICON has taken a giant leap this year to look into the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and IKS. Is there something that we share in between? Is there something that IKS can directly contribute, or is there something that would demand a thorough evaluation of our entire approach and perspectives towards SDG? So this is what I would like to draw your attention towards. My entire presentation is categorized in 3 chapters: the context of it, the problems and the consequences that we can note, and probable solutions and where they come from. First of all, when we speak about sustainable development goals, we should just need to understand the context. It involves 3 essential things. When they say about sustainable development, it's these 3 things that we look into. One is the inclusivity, the other one is sustainability, and the third point is resilience. Inclusive, sustainable, and resilient future for both planet and people. This idea of SDGs emerged in the year 2015. Till that point, it was largely considered as MDG, Millennium Development Goals. If you look at the Millennium Development Goals, the focus was largely on people and society. Very little consideration for nature, biosphere, planet, etc. Of course, there were a couple of points, but it was largely around people. Somewhere around 2015, like it was a gradual development, the entire membership of UN General Assembly came into a common understanding that in 15 years' time, we need to have certain goals which have specific indicators, and we should do our best to achieve these goals by 2030. Just look at the timeline. So these were the 17 goals that were accepted by 191 countries out of 193 countries that are there in UN. 191 consensuously adopted these 17 goals, and these 17 goals, again, if you classify them, they largely cover these 3 areas. One is the biosphere, that is planet, nature, etc. Second one is about society, where you have people, elements about people, hunger, gender equality, so on and so forth. And third one is about economy, the business models. These were the 17 goals which were set, and today we stand in the year 2024, that is nearly after 7 years after its commencement. So it's the right time to take an evaluation as to how we have progressed, if we have progressed at all. I think this is the finest time to review anything in the midway, and when we start reviewing, I think these 3 things call our attention. What are the economic systems that we have? What are the kinds of social and environmental indicators? How do we stand? So this is what we need to measure. If we look into these 3 aspects, I am sure it will hold us a mirror as to what kind of progress we have made so far. So please have a look into it as to what kind of progress we have made. This is from the last year's report, which has been recently released. Out of the 17 goals, which covers roughly around 169 indicators, if you look into it, the green shows that we are on the right track. Yellow shows we have deviated moderately or severely, and red shows that we have gone in a different direction, or rather we have receded back. We have not at all made any progress, and the gray area remains as a gray area which we don't have information or we are not fully aware of it. So if you really look at the statistics, progress is 30% in few areas. If you look into the yellow area and the red area, nearly about 60% we have not progressed or we have deteriorated. This is simply an eye-opener for us at the end of 7 years, have we made progress or not? And even among them, I just want to call your attention to 3 important areas. If these 3 important areas are well taken care of, I am sure the other ones also will take care of. We are in an age where we are very proud about the kind of economic systems that we have developed. So just we'll look into it, what we have done in this area. Okay? So look at this, all these companies, the unicorns, so on and so forth. Byju's stands as a classic case study in this context. All these businesses that you see, this is just a small list. All these businesses have died or on the verge of dying in last few years. They were all unicorns. They were valuated high. I'm sure being from the management school, business school, all these would be of interest to you. eBay has gone, Snapdeal has gone, ShopX has gone, all these have gone and they have died a very humiliating death. It's not even a natural death. What happened with them? What was the kind of business practices that they came up with? They were all unsustainable business models. I'm not starting from the health, I'm not starting from the planet perspective, but I'm starting from businesses and economy, which we are so happy and proud about. What is the kind of economic models that we have put forth? If you look at all these companies, how do they operate? They operate on the basis of market share. Evaluation is not based on profit, but it's largely made on how much market they occupy, the market share of each one of these company. And then you come, and today there's also a guideline which says fail fast. It's not about sustainable business, it's about how fast you can fail. If you have to run, you set up a company, make some money, you increase your market share and then sell it off. It's definitely not a profitable approach towards or sustainable approach towards business. And all these companies, if you look at them, they are not environmentally friendly, they're not people friendly. Just look at the way it happened in Byju's. The people who are working, they were now not paid, but lakhs and lakhs of amount were spent on advertisements. I mean, one of the biggest advertisements, they paid like anything, paid through their nose. And not only that, in all these companies, none of the founders, none of the promoters or the head who were heading it, they did not go bankrupt. The companies went bankrupt, people lost jobs, while the heads were getting heavy paychecks for all these companies. So it's all unhealthy. Environmental resource exploitation, human resource exploitation, economic exploitation, unhealthy or unsustainable offering, then focus on quality over quantity, quality over quantity, quantity over quality, addictive consumption pattern, complex opaque global value chain, short-term stakeholder interest and not the long-term perspective, and finally, unstable financial practices, while completely ignoring the 3 elements, that is profit, people and planet. If something has to be a sustainable business model, these 3 P's need to be taken care of. And I'm sure as consultants, as young entrepreneurs who are here, who will be blossoming here, I'm sure you'll be aware of these 3, that these 3 are to be essential for a sustainable business model, that is profit, people and planet. If this is not considered, then we are getting into the same kind of vicious circle. So this is one element. Moving further, now I want to just take you to the health situation, the state of health. It's so alarming and concerning. Take whichever aspect. Just look at the cancer state, the way cancer is increasing in humanity. At least some 20-30 years ago, we used to know about someone having cancer. But today, cancer has touched every household. Not a single family is not affected by cancer, which is the deadliest of the various kinds of issues, diseases that we have. Not only that, India is becoming the diabetic capital of the world. Okay? And then 1 in every 6 individuals are becoming depressive. This is the statistics from US. I'm sure The numbers might vary from one country to the other country, but this is not too long enough will the whole world reach this state. So economic models are failing, health situation is worsening. Not only that, a simple thing like sleep is being getting affected. Just look at the number of hours our people can sleep happily, and when you don't get good sleep, it has multiple effects. Okay? And the current statistics says nearly 40 to 50% people are affected by sleep disorders. And sleep disorders can cause cardiac issues, sleep disorders can cause diabetic issues, many other sorts of issues all come from sleep disorders. Not only that, the biggest thing that we have not noticed or we are blind to it is the increase in the number of fertility centers in all the metropolitan cities. At least in Bangalore, I can say every street corner you can find 2 fertility centers. Fertility rate is dropping like anything. If you are concerned about human health, which is one of the sustainable development goals, that's the 3rd development goals, where have we heading to in last 10 years, 12 years, 15 years? We're actually running in the backward direction. And now coming to the planetary aspects, this is something that I want you to pay your attention. Here you have the data of nearly from 1971 up to 2022, what they call it as Earth Overshoot Day. Earth Overshoot Day refers to the day in which in that particular year, that particular country or the larger population, they exceed that year's resources. So, for example, in the year 1971, we overshoot the earth resources in the month of December, right? So, whatever we consume later, it's actually borrowing from the next year. We are already started to borrowing from next year and future generations. So, in 1971, we overshoot it in December, but in the year 2023, we overshoot it in August. So it's almost like by August, you have completely exhausted the year resources that you would need for that entire year. There is one more diagram, if you can note, it shows data country-wise. When will that respective country overshoot the resources for that entire year? I mean, it's so sad to even to see the diagram. It says that countries like Luxembourg, US, they will deplete the year's resources by March. So we today stand on 1st of March. So it's almost like by mid-March, these countries would exhaust the entire year's resources. That means whatever these countries are spending now, they're actually borrowing from the next year's resources, right? So this is how that whole map of the world says. So it's countries like Jamaica which go on up to December. Whereas Qatar, whereas Luxembourg, whereas US, UK, all these countries, they finish it in the first half of the year itself. And just imagine what have we come to when it means that we exhaust the entire resources in first 2 months of the year. 10 months on udhar pe chal raha hai, borrowing from the future, borrowing from the next year, and borrowing from future generations as well. This is something that is very saddening. Unless we realize what we are doing, we are actually heading straight towards a dead end. And I'm sorry, this last tabular column may not be visible, but which only shows that if countries follow certain lifestyles, how many earth would be required to meet the requirements of that the entire population of this world. Say if we follow, all of us follow American lifestyle, we required about 5 earths to fulfill our needs. If we follow the lifestyle of Australia, we need about 4 earths. If we follow the lifestyle of China, we need about 2.71 earths. And if we follow the lifestyle of India, we need 0.7 earths. If the entire world population follows the lifestyle of India, the number of earths that is required is lesser, while all the other countries go on the other excess. Something that holds the key to our understanding here. And coming to the other bit, there is something called as planetary boundaries. Scientists have arrived at an understanding that there are 9 planetary boundaries, which means these are the necessary conditions for humanity to survive. If these boundaries are transgressed, then the possibility of coming back is very limited. And now they say, again this is a recent report of 2023, which says of the 9 planetary boundaries, we have transgressed 6 planetary boundaries. Biosphere, life on Earth, the aerosol production, so on and so forth, each one they have measured. These are very critical for humanity and life to survive. Of all the 9 planetary boundaries, 6 have already been transgressed. So all these are quite scary. Now just put these together. You have all these on SDGs. Life on Earth, life on water is a part of your SDG. Health and well-being is part of your SDG. Food production, zero hunger is part of your SDG. In all the SDGs, have we made any progress? An honest answer is no. Not only we have not made progress, but we have deteriorated. Then what does it say? What does it make us think? It only calls for a requirement that we need to actually examine what we stand. In fact, there is a statement of the Secretary General of UN where he says, unless we wake up now, this is likely to be a tombstone. We have already prepared our coffin. Coffin is going to be put on the ground and then we need to erect a tombstone. Unless we act now, the 2030 agenda will become an epitaph for a world that might have been. This is the part of the introduction to the SDG report that has been released recently. So all this calls for a re-looking. In fact, for the first time, the papal letter, the encyclical letter of the Holy Pope also points to the fact that these are not two issues. It's not human issue as well as environmental issue. They are but one issues which we have failed to recognize so far. So all this definitely calls us to come to the next part of the issue, that is the solution part, the chapter 3rd, and which really calls for a solution. Where do we get the alternative perspectives? Before I get into that, I just want you to look into this another index which has come up called as Greendex Index, okay, where they have put together about ranked 18 countries, and to look at it, which is the greenest in the sense, which is contributing towards the green or sustainability aspect. India stands on the first ranking, US stands at the last, right? While we have our own issues, we have our own challenges which Professor P.N. Jha was referring to. So there we have a lot of issues, but still there is something that we really need to look into, our own ways of living and being, which can provide solutions. This index was developed into considering 4 aspects. One is the housing, transport, food and goods. Considering all these things, they have ranked this 18 countries and India stands on the top. There is perhaps some solutions that we can look at it. And what are the probable solutions that people say to all these issues? Again, which are generic that most of you would be aware of. One is looking into the transportation, take care of the fossil fuels, change your eating habits, then protect forests, protect life in the earth, and recycle, reuse and related things. So these are largely the considerations as solutions, but where do they come from? Where can they emerge actually? This, what they say is, the general answer that we get is, oh, science is going to give us all the solutions. We'll come up with climate technologies which are sustainable technologies which will give us the answers. But most of these problems do not emerge from science or technology. Science and technology are just the tools. Where do they emerge from? They emerge from the attitudes that we have. They emerge from individual and collective behavior. So if we were to address these issues, if we need to look into and ensure that SDGs are properly attempted at, then we need to address this problem from a different levels, not from the same level from where these problems have been created. For some reason, Albert Einstein is coming back to the discussion again and again today. So again, we see him saying that you can never solve a problem from the same level of consciousness where you created. If you really need to address it, you need to tackle it from a different perspective, different level. And that's where it calls for a paradigm shift. A complete different perspective and approach. and where can we look at it is what, and when we say about that paradigm shift, what is that paradigm that we are looking at? One is a presence of a spiritual perspective. Second, an organic understanding of an organic whole and the integrality of things. Third is the diversity. Fourth one is live and let live approach. And fifth one, pursuit of meaning, truth and beauty. These are the 5 elements which can bring about a paradigm shift in our approach. And where can you look at this? And this is what the Indian tradition, Indian heritage, Indian knowledge systems holds in its bosom. Okay? When you look at the spiritual perspective, the very first idea from the Ishavasya Upanishad, Ishavasyamidam sarvam yatkincha jagatyan jagat, something that has enveloped the entire universe from outside and something that has permeated from inside. Okay? Isha Avasyam, that everything is one. Everything is organically connected because it emerges from one source. The consideration of Vyashti and Samashti, the way the Pindanda operates, this individual entity operates, this is the same way, exactly the same way the Brahmanda operates. There is a mirror connection between these two. And then the diversity. I think this is something we are familiar with diversity, but we speak of it in a very superficial terms. It's not just about wearing different kinds of dresses or anything. It is something more fundamental to that. That means, while truth is one, truth can be experienced through multiple ways and each way is valid way. It's not that I tolerate you though you are different, but I accept your means as a valid means for your pursuit. Mine might be different, but your ways is valid. See how this idea permeates in everything. The number of languages, more than 2000 languages in this country. The food habits differ so much to the extent that it actually contributes towards many things. Just to give you one example, there is a temple called Hornadu, Annapurneshwari temple in Karnataka, where the everyday bhog has to come from different varieties of rice. And for that very reason, the various varieties of rice has been maintained and protected there, not because their yield is high, not because you can maximize the yield which has happened in more or many places we have homogenized the species. But whereas in some places, whether it's Hornadu or whether it's Puri Jagannath, there is a requirement that the rice for the bhog should come from different varieties. So, irrespective of the quantity of their yield, they have been protected, and this diversity makes it more or less it actually helps in sustaining or holding this or make it less disease free. Homogenization has many other problems which we need not be discussing here, but in this manner diversity is something that is inherent, intrinsic to the Indic thought. And finally the live and let live, and while all this is happening, there needs to be some pull towards up for us to keep going on our path. That is where the pursuit of meaning, truth and beauty becomes so important. Otherwise, we always need some kind of distraction, and for that distraction we look into the material options. In order to overcome that, we really need to have this particular higher vision. That is what we call in technical terms as an alternative epistemology and an alternative metaphysics. What we understand as real and how does it express itself? How do we know what we are knowing? So need to bring in an alternative, completely alternative epistemology which is required to bring this paradigm shift. And if I have to summarize some of the important concepts which are helpful in this particular context is these things in the context of sustainable development goals. Just this one idea that Rina, this is a very fundamental idea, concept in the Indic thought, that everyone who is born with 3 runas. Tribhir rinavan jayate. What is it? The Pitru runa, Deva runa and Rishi runa. All are born indebted. We are indebted to the Pitrus, that is the parents and the ancestral lineage, because we are the beneficiaries of their tapasya. Similarly, Daiva, there are unseen forces which are acting in this world of which we are beneficiaries. And third one, the Rishi Runa, the teacher lineage which has preserved this knowledge for us. So each one of us are born with the three runas, and if we have to address these three runas, then you need to engage in the Pancha Maha Yajna, Bhuta Yajna, Rishi, Swadhyaya Yajna, Nru Yajna. Like this, the Pancha Yajnas as the behavioral component, as the performative action component, it has been prescribed. So you have the idea of Runa, you are born indebted, how do you overcome the debt? By engaging in an Yajna. Yajna is that conscious exchange where you are made a positive contributor to the cycle that exists. In fact, the Gita or the Rig Veda goes to the extent of saying that Kevalagho bhavati kevaladi. One who just eats, one who just consumes without contributing back, he is only kevalagha. He is an embodiment of sin. Gita says, Tena eva saha. He is a thief who does not contribute to the cycle. So one who is not participating in the cycle of yajna, then he is a thief or a sinner. So this is one fundamental idea that we come across when it comes to Runa and Yajna. Similarly, one concept of Purushartha, which is also the title of the magazine of SMS school, okay, which very clearly defines while Artha and Kama have to be pursued, the pleasures of the life have to be pursued, while wealth has to be pursued, what is the sound basis on which has to be pursued? That is Dharma. Dharma, Dharana Dharma ityahuhu dharmo dharayate prajaha. Dharma in that way is nothing but sustainability. It comes from the root dharane, something that nourishes and sustains. Okay, what better word for sustainability than this? Therefore, that whole Purushartha concept is a very strong framework for a sustainable development approach. In fact, we need to evolve a dharmic ecology which considers all these points, and out of which, inspired by which we develop the indicators, we develop the framework, and on which we can have the measurements as well. And similarly, when it comes to the health and well-being aspect, we have the entire well time-tested traditions of yoga and Ayurveda. I'll not go into the details. COVID itself was a mirror in many ways to show that how we were able to deal with it, while countries with most modern facilities, sophisticated instrumentalization were suffering, while how did we survive itself is a case study in this context. So then the whole idea of karma, that one needs to engage in a conscious action. Actions have consequences, whether consequences at the individual level or consequences at the collective level, consequences at the environmental level. My action has consequences. Just a few reminders, and with that I'll conclude. I wear a jeans pant. How many liters of water is it required to produce one pair of jeans? It requires about 7,600 liters of jeans, blue jeans. Remember that. We use diapers, sanitary napkins, so on and so forth, unmindfully, to the extent that every year we produce 3 lakh, this is just India numbers I'm telling, 3 lakh tons of sanitary waste every year, and our recycling capacity is hardly 1/10 of it. So every day we are adding. Just look at the way dhotis are there. Look at the life cycle of a dhoti. It starts as a dhoti, then it becomes a cleaning material, then it comes to something else. So at least it goes to a life cycle 10 to 12 years. And jeans pant, if you intend to change the jeans pant in 3 or 4 pants in a year or 2, the kind of resources that go into it, we need to be mindful. Karma comes in. I need to be mindful of what my actions are leaving behind. So in each and every aspect, now we have a choice whether I take the lifestyle that has come from the tradition, where I not only support, it is good for the entire planet, but also it leaves behind some 0.3 planets for some other emergency, or I follow the path of American lifestyle which demands 5.1 Earths. Where do we get so many Earths? So the point finally is, it's not science, it's not technology that's going to solve our problems. If we just put all our eggs in one basket and say, oh, we'll come up with sustainable technologies in the future which is going to solve our problems, we are just procrastinating the dead end, nothing more. What the problem comes from attitude and behavior. If a change, if a solution needs to be brought in, it needs to be brought in the place of attitude and behavior, and for that you need to have an inspiration and a conceptual framework. IKS can provide both a good inspiration and a very well developed conceptual framework based on which attitudinal change, behavioral change, following the science and technology emergence as well. So all this is possible in an alternative paradigm. Therefore, IKS is not an option anymore, but IKS is an imperative to survive. So with this, I once again thank the organizers, especially Avinash ji and everyone here, and offering my pranams to the dayas here, I conclude my words. Thank you.